Regular meeting for January 12th. Let's pay special attention this week as we rise to do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I will now take the roll. Councillor Waldman.
Present.
Councillor Murray.
Here.
Councillor Burkett.
Here.
Councillor Lucero.
Here.
Councillor Knight.
Here.
Thank you. Full house as it is right now. We will move on to approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve?
So move.
Do I have a second? Thank you. One thing I would mention is that our legislators are due to come join us about 7 o'clock. So with everyone's permission, we're going to kind of work our way through until they arrive, if that's acceptable with that potential change. All right. Could I have a vote then to approve the agenda?
Aye.
All right. Thank you. Any nays? All right. The agenda has been approved. So we're going to be going down to reports. Section E, the administrator report. Administrator Curry.
Good evening, Mayor.
Good
The
evening.
first thing I'd like to do for local heroes is turn it back over to you.
Okay. Well, as you know, we've been trying to recognize people in our community that are doing the kinds of things that make us proud. And this session, I want to thank team builders. This is going to take me a little bit. These folks have been building desks for kids stuck at school. Ben Blackwell started this. He brought a prototype to the Corrales Elementary School, and then he modified his design to make it a better fit for kids kindergarten through 3rd grade. Now, this group has now built 24 small desks for Corrales Elementary, Alameda Elementary, and Bernalillo Elementary, and the Corrales Fire Department has been distributing them. But he's not alone. He's been joined by Rick Toller, his son Jacob Toller, Tracy Murphy, Rio Rancho's Mike Murray. The Kiwanis Club has thrown in some donations. Donations have also come from the National Wood Products. Shannon Perry of Blue Dog Fine Woodworking, Billy Warner and Mike Otero of DS Assemblies have provided assembly time. And I think that's really a great story, and I'd like us all to give them a round of applause. And we will figure out how to get certificates to this whole group. And Ben was very concerned that someone would be left out. So we will continue to add to the team as names, if more names become apparent. Thank you so much to all of you. You're making a big difference for our children at home trying to learn. Ron?
I'd like to turn it over to Tanya to give a COVID update, all things COVID, but before she takes it, I would just like for everyone on this council meeting to be aware of what an asset that Tanya and Aaron and Lynn and I believe a couple of other folks have been in helping with the shots and the vaccines that have been given up in Rio Rancho. The folks in Rio Rancho will tell you how appreciative they are of Tanya and her crew's effort in distributing the vaccines. And so I just want to say thank you as well, Tanya, for that. It's got a terrific operation up there. And I think, and Tanya can correct me, but I think as this goes along, if we do things right and the vaccines get distributed right, we might even have a pod here in Corrales. With that, I'll turn it over to Tanya.
Thank you, Mayor, councilors, Ron. Thank you, Chief Martinez, for giving me a lot of your staff and Ron. We've got Mike Chavez, we've got Bryn Amon Cole, other firefighters that are going to be doing it. Lynn Benito has been a big help. He was up there today. So the pod is a drive-through location and it's just gone live. So people, we've got revaccinated today, first responders and other people who had special pods, but we did get 3 people in from the community who had already registered. So if you're not registered on the vaccine site, is right below how to get to it on the village website, COVID-19 resources below the picture. And we're gonna start next week trying to do 400 to 600 a week at that site. We do want more. I want more. I keep pushing them for more. And we are looking at hopefully getting a pod within Corrales into February 1st of March. I will move it up if I can get it moved up. That would be for everybody in Sandoval County, not just Corrales citizens. Oh, I see Lori and Sherry are also people who can work the pod. So Corrales has been doing a wonderful effort. Right now we're at 215 cases of COVID in Corrales, and about 28 of them to 30 of them are active. We're starting to see the Christmas peak right now. Expect numbers to go up due to Christmas holiday. Vaccine is so important. We've got Dr. Brody to do a video recording, and I'm getting a recording on how it was developed that I'm going to hope to put up on the website today as soon as I get that, and why it is considered safe and why it went faster than a lot, but no corners were cut. And we need, estimates are everywhere between 60% to 85% of the population vaccinated and or previously ill to get to that herd immunity point. We are still not past 90 days from epidemiology. Epidemiology still really thinks based on blood, because we're not looking at T-cell immunity yet, that people who've had COVID are only immune possibly for up to 90 days, but we're getting more information in. So we are recommending, even if you've had COVID, you get vaccinated. And I told Chief Martinez, I'm not sure he likes it, I'd be happy to stand out 8 hours a day and vaccinate people 7 days a week. Because I think it is so, so important, and I'll just do my other work at midnight. Be happy to stand for any questions on sites, vaccination, COVID, any questions that anyone has.
Counselors, does anybody have a question for Commander Latin?
Yes, it's Councilor Waldman.
Yes, go ahead, Bill.
We spoke a couple of days ago about various sites and things, and you mentioned that there were a significant minority, I think, of employees in Corrales who were not taking advantage. And could you maybe go into that a little bit?
I don't have exact numbers because right now, since it's emergency use only, they don't have to turn back into us. But I do know it's lower than we would like. And that's why we did the meeting with Dr. Brody. So we had a medical, not just me, even though I read a lot about vaccine, to be able to speak about the safeties of it. And he also spoke about the disease process itself. So we're hoping that the more education, and I got my second vaccine today. Chief Martinez got his second vaccine today. So far, I'm feeling really good. I'm expecting to maybe feel kind of yucky, but that's okay. That means my immune system is kicked in. So we're hoping the more people that get vaccinated, the more we can educate people, the less scared to be. And we know some people just can't take them for some reason. But we need to take our vaccine and to protect those other people. It's really, really important.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for Commander Latin on vaccines?
I have 2 quick ones.
Yes, Councilor.
Appreciate everything you're doing. My first question is, do we need more people to administer them? It seems like nationwide, just logistically, people are kind of the limiting factor. And here in the village, we have a lot of retired and active healthcare personnel. Is there going to be a reach out to the village to maybe help with that so we can expedite? And then my second question is, people who can't come to the pods that are homebound for one reason or another, but still have people that visit them, do we have any sort of strategy to get vaccines to those people?
So Councilor Burkett, thank you for your question. We have, and I've already recruited a lot of people from the village to work pods. They're signed up on MRC. We have their names. For our pod in the village, we have a whole list of names of people that we'll be calling and reaching out to for different things, whether it's vaccinating. That's not the issue for us. Right now, the issue is vaccine. The issue is vaccine. I am working with Sandoval County. We're trying to come up with a way to do about 2,500 teachers to get a bunch of teachers done. But we don't get vaccine. The state gets vaccine, hospitals get vaccine. I'm working with Dr. Brody to see if we want to become our own pharmacy at some point. If the state can't release it, it's really vaccine for us. I can pull in just the fire department, everyone from EMT and above can vaccinate. And we've got a lot of people who can do the parking lot and the scribing. It is getting the vaccine. As for the home care or the homebound, right now they're supposed to be working with some of the pharmacies for that, but I do have a plan in Corrales. We know who our homebound people are, and we need that. But a lot of those people have nurses that come in, and those nurses are working with those hospitals directly. And I'm working with Village in the Village to make sure that I have a good list of those people. So if I need to run vaccine to them, I can. Right now we're doing Pfizer, so we have a shorter lifespan. But that's fine. It's still 6 hours from the time we reconstitute, so that's not a problem. So we do have plans in place. It's just getting vaccine into the state.
Mayor, this is Councilor Murray.
Yes, Councilor Murray.
Yeah, Tanya, how long does it take to get the shot from, say, the start of your paperwork to when they get the actual shot? I mean, is that the limiting thing, is doing the paperwork before they get the shot?
So the paperwork should have been done online prior to you even going. You're not going to be able to get a shot if you haven't gone online and registered for it. They're not going to call. You're not going to get a phone call. You're not going to be able to come to a pod. So you have to go online and register it. And I did put my phone number in for people who don't have access to do that in Corrales comments, so they could call me so I can register them. The state did open up a phone bank for them to register people as well. So everything's done online. The day of your vaccine, you get another text message that states you need to fill out your health questionnaire. When you first get to our pod site, at least, when you get there, we have a person or two in the thing asking if you're registered and making sure you were pre-registered and pre-called. And then they also tell you to open up your application on your phone if you can. If you don't, they have tablets. They open it up so you can do your health questionnaire. Then you have to wait in line, get up to your secondary check. And when you pull into the secondary check where you're with the vaccinator and a scribe, they open up the application and find out if you have any allergies to medications, those kind of things, so we can clear you for vaccine or not clear you for vaccine. And then we give you your shot. So as fast as I can vaccinate one person about every minute, but we always end up with 2 or 3 people in line that haven't finished their registration. So we have people going down that line to make it faster.
Okay, thank you.
The only time you would fill out paperwork is if it's a site where we have extra vaccine and we've called people in that we know are at risk. They may do a paper ballot at that point.
Are you doing shot record, like documentation for the first and second shots?
Yes, each shot you get, I don't know if you can see it, but you get a card given to you at each with the lot number, the manufacturer, and it gets given to you for both. And do not lose them. They're very important. The CDC today said that they were going to make it no one coming in from international flights could come in without vaccine.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Well, thank you so much, Commander Lattin. We really are all so appreciative of how hard you're working to help us. And I know if anybody can get us those vaccines, you can.
Yep.
I'm trying, Mayor.
I know, boy, I know. Exactly. Okay, back to you.
Okay.
Administrator Curry. Yes.
I would like to just remind everybody, and I know you look at them, but even the non-counselor folks, if you look into the packet and the agenda, you'll find a lot of monthly reports in there from our departments and our commissions, some of our committees. And I just want to do a shout out to the folks who submit those for the packet. There's lots of nuggets of details in there. And aside from the necessity of looking at some of these things, questions that you have, it just tells you a lot about what's going on and the efforts that are going on in each department. So like this meeting was a little over 100 pages, and it's not unusual for it to be that long with the minutes and things that are in there, but still I want you to just be aware that there's lots of goodies in there, especially for the folks who aren't counselors. It gives you a good backdrop as to what we're doing here in the village and how hard everybody's working. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that the RENA, and with the help of some other folks in the village, is conducting a physical inventory of our assets here in the village. Everything from trucks to cans to, computers to what have you. This hasn't been done in the village for a very, very long time. And we thought it would be a good idea to start to get into compliance and get that done, aside from looking at some of the things that we thought were there or not there. But the inventory is in progress. And I just wanted to make you all aware of that. Hopefully we won't find too many surprises, but what we will find is a good baseline of what our inventory is going forward, which won't only be helpful to us, it will be helpful to us as we try to advocate for the village what we need going forward. So that's it for me, Mayor. And if anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Questions for Administrator Curry? Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Ron, I've got three things. Have you heard anything from the New Mexico DOT as they rescheduled your meeting to discuss the crossings and other issues?
No, we have, and then I would add to that they've sent us a couple of confusing emails as to when the meetings will be, and then canceled them or changed the email to the next one that's out. They actually said we're going to have a meeting in either January or March, and now they're saying it may be March. And so I'll be reaching out to them to see if we can't get a definitive date that they'll stick to.
So also, last month, there was supposed to be an audit report meeting, and I was just wondering, has that been rescheduled or has there been a date assigned to that yet?
No.
Another one.
And the reason why is that we've been working with the auditors, and Rena would give them information, and then they would ask us more questions after she had said, is this all information you need? So it's kind of take one step forward and two steps back with them. And so we are pressing them for a date on that as well. The delay has not been because of us. The delay has been because of the auditors.
Okay, thank you, Ron. And one more question. I asked you last week, I think it was, about the records retention in the village. And you said that you were moving the system from the old style records retention to maybe the state-based records retention.
Right.
I'm sorry.
That's the plan. I may ask Randy to jump in here and add to that we're trying to move to the state system because what we've got is old and we want to be more compliant with what the state records are.
Yeah, and I wanted Randy to chime in on too about where emails fit into this, because do they consider this a communication, especially when it involves the council, the mayor, you, and maybe some of the commissions that we have, where these things need to be taken and recorded. But I just wondered if Randy would jump in there and talk about that too.
If I can ever get unmuted, I will. The counselor, mayor and council, it's a complex question. My preference would be if I could wave a magic wand, would be that emails are always only an envelope for a message that's being delivered. And what that means is then the email itself does not need to be retained for a very long period. It can be a very short retention period. But as soon as you start placing information in that email that makes it a public record, then you have to look at how long it should be retained. So that's one of the things that we're looking at tackling. And having a good retention schedule makes the clerk's job vastly better when it comes to Inspection of Public Records Act. Because generally what happens is if you have a short retention period on emails, then you take the information on those that is being conveyed and put it in another form, and it falls into a longer retention period. And if we all get used to that system, then we don't have years and years and years worth of emails to review on every IPRA that people want to ask about. That gets us into trouble, because then it involves searches, physical searches of emails, and that can lead to mistakes. So that's what we'll be working towards. But you create a very good point. If there are emails that are communicating important information and they're the only source of that information, then they are the public record. I hope that helped.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Ron.
All right. Are there any more questions? If not, we will move on to Counselor's Forum, which this section is for information purposes only, not for discussion and debate, to inform the governing body of an issue, concern that would not be addressed on the agenda. Anybody for the Counselor's Forum this evening? Counselor Murray?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Just one item. I think since Councilor Dornberg has resigned, we need to select a new mayor pro tem out of the group, and maybe that'll be on the agenda for next month or next meeting.
It will be on the agenda for the next meeting. Anything else for the Counselor's Forum? All right, let's move on to the Corrales Forum. This section is for information purposes only, not for discussion and debate, to inform the governing body of an issue or concern that would not be addressed on the agenda during the business session. Aaron, do we have somebody for the Corrales Forum this evening?
Yes, we have one person who submitted a short note for us to read. So this is from, and apologies if this is a horrible pronunciation, Stephanie von Anken. It reads, "Hey there, just wanted to put a comment in for the Corrales Forum. Corrales is so cool. I saw the monolith that showed up at the corner of Corrales Road and Meadowlark. And of course, it is not made of metal, but it is made of bird food suet. Such a neat idea. It is a fundraiser for a local nonprofit, On a Wing and a Prayer, that does wild bird rehabilitation and education at our local public schools. I checked out their Facebook page and they are aiming to raise $5,000 for their project. I just thought this was something truly Corrales to do. A bird seed monolith. Love it. Thanks, Steph Marie."
Well, thank you for your comment. It is very Corrales, and thank you for your comment. So we'll now move on to our consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. The item is the approval of minutes for December 8th, 2020 regular council meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Do I have a second? All right. Thank you, Councilor Knight. All in favor? I will take the roll call. Is there discussion? Okay, hearing none, I will take the roll call vote then to approve the minutes. Councilor Lucero?
Aye.
Councilor Knight?
Aye.
Councilor Waldman? Councilor Murray? We'll come back
Aye.
to Councilor Waldman. Councilor Burkett?
Aye.
Councilor Waldman, are you there? Well, I don't know what's happened, but I think we have is that a sufficient vote, Randy?
Yes.
Somehow all right, thank you. Then the minutes will be approved for December 8th. We still have no legislators on the site, so we're going to move on to new business. The first item on new business is the mayor's appointment of a qualified elector, J. Tyson Parker, to fill the vacancy in Council District 4 pursuant to her authority under Section 312(1) of the New Mexico statutes annotated. As mayor, I appoint under that authority J. Tyson Parker to fill the remaining term vacated by David Dornberg for District 4. And at this point, I would go to the second part, which is a vote to confirm my appointment of J. Tyson Parker. Do I have a motion?
I move that we vote for J. Tyson Parker to become a District 4 representative.
Do I have a second? Discussion. All right, I will take a vote then for this tonight. Councilor Lucero,
Aye.
Councilor Knight,
No
Aye.
discussion.
Councilor Waldman, Councilor Murray,
Aye.
Councilor Burkett,
Aye.
and I think that's an adequate vote. And I know Councilor Waldman is probably struggling to get back into the meeting, but I would like to thank the council, and I would like to welcome Tyson, who is here with us tonight. Can you wave, Tyson, for us? We had qualified applicants. We want to thank everyone in the community who stepped up for this. And I think that he's a very strong representative, and I want to welcome him to the council. So welcome, Tyson.
Well, thank
Councilor
you.
Parker.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I see some familiar faces and names on the screen here. So I look forward with working with all of you on this. And hopefully by the time it's all done, everything will be clear as mud. So thank you again.
Well, I think your governing body colleagues will agree with you on that. That is one thing we're all assured of. So thank you for stepping up. We look forward to working together. All right, we will move on to item number 2, which is the approval of the recommendation of award RFP 2001 for village attorney services between the Village of Corrales and New Mexico government law, which is Randy Audio's nom de plume. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Discussion? All right, then I will take a vote. Councilor Lucero,
Aye.
Councilor Knight,
Aye.
Councilor Waldman,
Aye.
Councilor Murray,
Aye.
Councilor Burkett.
Aye.
Thank you. And
Ooh, you
now,
forgot one.
I'm sorry.
You
Oh,
forgot
that's right.
Councilor
Councilor
Parker.
No, he can't vote tonight. I'm sorry. I think if that's okay, we'll just give him till next week, okay? So that's
You want to exclude him if, since he's the new guy.
yeah, I know. We don't want to make him feel bad. What do you think, Counselor? Audio. Now I'm talking about lawyer counselor, not counselor.
Well, we would have to, we have to do a swearing in through the clerk, and that should be done in a formal, in a one-on-one witnessed situation, not virtually. So we should do that and then have him ready for the next meeting.
All right. Thank you. Nice thought though, Counselor Knight. We did want to throw you right into the mix. Counselor Parker.
Just for what it's worth, I'd be recusing myself from everything tonight anyway. So
Well, don't make that a habit though, please. All right. So we will move on to item number 3, which is consideration, action, and approval of the contract between the village and New Mexico local government law for village attorney services. Do I have a motion to approve the contract?
I move that we approve the contract.
All right. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you very much. Discussion about the contract. Counselor Murray?
So what, I forget, what's the length of the contract? I mean, that we were gonna, is this gonna be valid for?
Be happy to jump in.
Yes, of course.
Just so everybody knows, it's exactly the same contract that was in place previously, except that it is pursuant to an RFP. So it's valid for 1 year. So January 1, 2022. It has an option if both parties agree to renew it for 3 more years. but there's no requirement to renew it. So, and then if you don't like me, you can always kick me to the curb. So.
Well, Randy, so what happens if you're unable to serve as the village attorney? Is there a backup to your?
For what type of a situation, like a conflict of interest?
No, more like sickness or health problems or something like that. I mean, just something kind of out off the wall.
Sure. Well, I have 3 other lawyers in the firm now. And so all of them are available. You'll meet them as time goes on. Between us, we have almost 90 years of service for public entities, local governments. So if I'm not there, you might get somebody that knows more than I do. Of course, that may not be that hard to do anyway, but point is we have the experience and the expertise. And if there is a conflict situation, then we would seek somebody that's one of our buddies in the business that would help out the parties that have the conflict.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, then I will take a vote on this contract. Councilor Waldman,
Aye.
Councilor Murray,
Aye.
Councilor Burkett,
Aye.
Councilor Lucero,
Aye.
Councilor Knight.
Aye.
Well, congratulations, Randy. It looks like you are stuck with us for the foreseeable future.
Well, thank you very much. You are fabulous clients, and I hope I can help in any way I can. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Madam Mayor,
I know, yes.
I just saw Damon get on, so if
All
you
right.
wanted to start presentations, you can, or you can continue down the list there.
I know that the next item we are having a presentation, so that probably will take a little bit of time. So why don't we go to Representative Damon Eli if he's ready to get on the line for us.
Yeah. Hi, guys.
Hi there.
How is everybody? That was efficient. I just went from one Zoom meeting to the next. So it's nice to see all of you. Randy, congratulations. I just heard, so that's neat. You have a wonderful.
Thank you very much. It's been a while since we worked together, but it's good to see you there.
It's nice to see you too. Let me just see if I can ask you. I'm happy to talk to all of you about anything you would be interested in. And I would like to get in writing, frankly, because it's just, it is literally like just stuff is coming at me. What Corrales might need. If I could, I'll just give you a snapshot of what's going on. First, and I think most importantly to the village, we will have money. That's the good news. We'll have capital outlay money. I don't know how much. Brenda probably has a better idea than I do. I've been hearing that the senators are going to have about $1 million a piece, which means the representatives will have about, I'm total guess, guys, it's going to be about 750,000. I don't know that that's right, but just as a round number. Frankly, I'm shocked that I'm telling you that. If you had asked me 6 months ago, I would have said to you, there isn't any money. We are going to run a flat budget. Now, in terms of trying to get a hold of me, I will stick in the, is there a chat room? I'm assuming that there is. What I will do is I'll put in the chat room. Yeah, I see it. I will put all of my contact information so that you have it, because at least on the House side, we are going to run an entirely virtual session, floor and committee. I'm the House Rules Chair, so I know what the proposal is. I talked to the Republican leader for an hour today, wasn't happy about it, but the reality is none of us are happy about it. The pandemic is a real concern, and we did get modeling from Los Alamos, so I'm not just pontificating. We do a regular session with people on the floor. The chances are excellent that there will be a COVID outbreak. I've talked to one of the health experts who said basically you're running the risk that somebody's going to die or be seriously injured. So we have to encourage people to stay off the floor, which means that everything that we do, you will be able to see, and committees you will be able to participate in. But if anybody says that that's a good substitute for what we ordinarily do, they don't understand the process, because it's so much better to be able to see everybody in person. It just can't happen that way. So I really want to make sure that you feel like you can reach out to me both by my cell number, and I will give you my regular email address. If for some reason I don't get back to you, please bug me. Let me know. I'll give you my office number as well, so that my secretary can come in and say, you haven't gotten back to Kevin in a while. So I'll make sure that I do. It is going to be, I think, I'm guessing that we won't go the 60 days. I don't know that. The way this is going to work is we're going to start the session next Tuesday. We are then going to break into committee for several weeks. There will be floor sessions, but they'll be basically administrative floor sessions. There won't be any votes. It'll be the speaker, minority leader, and majority leader doing the paperwork of the legislature. I think in earnest, the floor sessions, the real votes will start sometime the second or third week of February. That's when you want to keep your eye on us. As far as capital outlay is concerned, I haven't seen it yet. I keep hearing it's going to be done electronically. Whoever is the contact person for Corrales, please let me know. I really do want to do a good job for all of you. I have Corrales and then 2 counties. Most of my district, weirdly enough, is in Bernalillo County, even though I live here in Corrales. But I want you all to feel like you can reach out to me. And this weekend, by the way, not to be shared, I don't have any Zoom calls. So if you want to get a hold of me this weekend, this is the perfect time to be talking to me. So don't hesitate to call me. And you can call me at night. My wife is used to it. It's not a problem. If I'm busy, I'll let you know and I'll try to get back to you. I'm happy to talk to you about any specific pieces of legislation to the extent I know about it. I'm getting a pretty good idea of what is going to happen. So if you guys have any concerns about specific pieces of legislation, I don't mean to be so general. I just don't know what it is I can help you with yet, but I'm anxious to do it. So, and to be a good representative. So let me know, and I'm in no hurry. And Mayor or Ron or any of the counselors, if you have any questions for me, I am happy to answer them. So.
Do we have some questions for Yes, Councilor Murray.
Thank you. Damon, is the budget looking pretty good this year, considering that the pandemic has been in place?
It is. I got to tell you, nobody's more surprised than me. We will run a flat budget. I really thought if you'd asked me this question 4 or 5 months ago, I would have said 20% across the board cuts. We were really facing a dire crisis. Now, I talked to Patty Lundstrom, who's our budget chair. The gross receipts tax were not as badly impacted. Oil and gas prices have kind of stabilized. So we're running a flat budget. There was talk, by the way, of delaying this session. And frankly, from a budgetary point of view, there would have been no reason not to delay because we would know better close. But yeah, it's remarkable. We're running a flat budget, at least right now.
So does that mean that you guys doing Zoom, we're going to save money on per diem?
Yeah, no. No, I gotta ask that because I will tell you, just so you know, your money's well spent as the last volunteer legislature. Thank you very much. But I will tell you that for this representative, what is going to happen is I told my wife, I said, listen, I don't think I'm gonna have to go to Santa Fe every day. And then the majority leader, Cheryl Williams Stapleton, said, I don't care what anybody else is doing, but Damon Eli is going to be sitting right here next to me because I'm the House parliamentarian. And given all the fighting that goes on, I will tell you guys a surprising thing that I am trying to do. And, you know, I know this is weird in these toxic times, but if anybody has followed kind of the legislation I've done over the years, I have carried some pretty tough, you know, very partisan kinds of legislation, but I've also been careful to try and bridge the divide and carry at least one piece of legislation a year that is bipartisan in nature to turn down the volume. This year, believe it or not, I, along with Greg Nybert, are running the emergency proclamation bill. What it will do is the legislature, frankly, I think the governor's done a good job on public health, but she could have benefited from the legislative involvement on the economy. And the legislature, no fault of hers, took themselves out of it. And so we're going to put ourselves back into the mix. The legislation is being drafted right now. in any future pandemic or in this one, after 90 days, the governor has to call us into special session, and then we get called back in every 60 days so that we can fulfill some oversight. For my colleagues, on the Democratic side, I say, listen, if Susanna was governor, we'd be screaming for it. And the fact is that both parties can come to it and try to work together on some pieces of legislation. And as rules chair, we're going to have lots of fighting. But at the end of the day, I am trying to do a process that's fair to everybody. I really think it's important that we try, even in these times, to turn down the volume where we can. And so I'm trying to do that, just so you all know. But as far as per diem is concerned, yes, the members.
So, Damon, one more question, I'll let you go. But
Yeah.
the cannabis question that may be coming up, what do you think the impact will be to the local communities? Because it seems like now with the some of the more conservative members of the legislature being turned out, that this may stand a better chance of passing this year. I'm just curious about your take on what impact it might have on local communities and so forth.
Cannabis is coming. Legalizing marijuana, I think is coming. The governor is starting to be on board. This is not a duck, it's just the truth. I have not seen the legislation that's being proposed. There are 3 separate bills. I've yet to see any of them. Tomorrow, Javier Martinez is presenting what probably will be the cannabis bill in the House. There may be one other in the House. I heard that Representative Lujan's running one, and then there's another in the Senate. I am curious to see what local control is out there. The last bill that I was a part of, I'm not part of this, but the last bill that I was a part of that I recall really spent a lot of time talking about local control over a specific part of the cannabis industry, but honestly, I can't remember now which part it was. But it's coming. With Arizona legalizing it, Colorado, it's coming. I know it is. I
just hope it's done right.
Yeah, I do too, and I agree with you. I mean, look, we have local control, effect on developing brains, and driving impaired. We all know, and medical marijuana to protect that program. So we all know what the problems are, but the devil's in the details, and we'll have to see. I will know the bill tomorrow. If you'd ask me this question tomorrow night, I'd be much better off than I am today. So you can call me.
Do we have any other questions for Representative Eli from any of the other counselors? I wanted to ask you what you think. I was told that we should manage our expectations because they're probably not going to carry as many bills, not going to get as many things passed this session. What do you think are the top 3 things that are likely to get through?
So that is true on the House side, for example. We have an informal guideline or rule. It won't be in the House rules to limit us to 5 bills because of the tremendous crush that's on Legislative Council service. I'm not getting anything out. In terms of the major bills that are coming, I do think the emergency proclamation is one to address that concern. I do think there is a real push to use, remember we did the Small Business Loan Act in June that has been underutilized. That's money that came off budget out of the Severance Tax Permanent Fund. I do think you're going to see some of that money used for infrastructure projects. Broadband may finally be here in a real way, because what we're seeing is people are coming to New Mexico, and the way to make New Mexico more attractive is to complete the infrastructure picture, and that requires quality internet. So there are 8 women in the House that are working diligently on broadband. Senators are working on it. I do think that's coming. Early childhood and money in early childhood is coming. Legalizing marijuana is coming. I think there'll be a push to loosen up the small business loan program, in addition to broadband and those kind of things, to have some remove some of the restrictions. So as the PPP goes away, some of these businesses will be able to have access to loans. We can't give grants. We're not allowed to do that, but we can give below market interest loans with no collateral and no personal guarantee. And so you'll see that, and there'll be a real effort, I think, to try and do as much as possible to kind of get New Mexico moving quickly. And I think the governor's pushing that, and the legislature is. I do think there is a sea change in the Senate. Somebody mentioned that. I do think a lot of the legislation that's been held up in the past is going to get through.
Thank you so much. Yes, Counselor Knight.
Representative Eli, do you think the bill about non-taxing Social Security what's the feeling about that?
I'll tell you why I carried that bill. I'll tell you why I don't think that's going to happen. We're in a flat budget period. So remember, it's easy to talk about, and I will tell you why I carried the bill. I carried the bill to say we should stop taxing recipients of Social Security. But the hard part about that, it's always easy to talk about cutting taxes. The hard part is to talk about how do you pay for it? Are you going to stop providing certain services? You're going to pay for it some other ways. So I, in the tax committee, may have said, here's how you pay for it. You legalize marijuana. Everybody laughed and my bill failed. So we have literally no way to pay for that right now. I know there'll still be a push, but in a flat budget period where we don't have any extra money, the question is where's that money going to come from? We're looking at between 90 and $120 million that would come out from doing it. Do I think it needs to be done? Yes, I do. I am a believer in it, but we have to figure out a way to pay for it. I honestly think the one thing that we are missing in New Mexico that we have not done, and we're starting to understand how serious this is, we have to do real tax reform. There'll be some, we can't do it all at once because the danger is you run into huge deficits. But honestly, Mel, I don't think there'll be a realistic push for cutting Social Security in this period of flat budget. But I think in the 30-day, it's going to be the real deal.
Okay, thank you. And
Any
good
other,
luck.
yes, any other questions from the council members for Representative Eli?
Sure.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Councilor Waldman?
Yes.
Just a quick question on the broadband. We know that there are frontier communities, Native American communities that are desperate for broadband. Here in Corrales, I was contacted by someone who moved here about 2 years ago. He lives off of West Ella. It would cost him $33,000 to $85,000 to be hooked up with broadband. How finite do you think that the broadband space might be?
So here's the interesting thing that's coming. This is why, look, if we did fiber optics to everybody, and you're 100% right about impoverished rural areas and all that stuff, I don't want to make this sound like a panacea, but the technology is coming so quickly. I'll give you one example, and it's only by way of example, is this company Sky.
Yep. That
has these, now they're not there yet, but they're getting close. They put 4 blimps up in the air over the state of New Mexico, and we are going to have very quickly 100% coverage in New Mexico for a fraction of the cost that we're talking about fiber optics. I'm not saying it takes the place of fiber optics, but it supplements it, and it would be a game changer. So a year from now, we may be having a very different conversation, and it may be how quick is it going to be before it gets here. So I don't know yet. Broadband is part of the reason that the legislature has been talking about it for 10 years is because it's both expensive and complicated. But I do think we're turning a corner. I do have to tell you one funny thing. I did go down to look at the blimp that was down there, and my wife usually doesn't come with me, but I was able to convince her to come see the blimp because we stopped at Buckhorns on the way back so I can bribe my wife for the food. So we were able to do that. But I do think it's coming. Broadband's a game changer.
Was that their facility in Roswell?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where the blimp is. There are administrative facilities in Moriarty. We didn't go see that. Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, it's amazing. And they've spent of their own money, 70 or, venture capitalist stuff. Do I think the legislature will help them? Yes. But we got to be careful about that because we have an obligation to the taxpayers as well, not to just give money to things. So there'll have to be some due diligence. So we're trying to lock that in. But I think you're going to see a real movement towards broadband. And remember, we can also leverage federal dollars, and those are huge. So we're working on it. So I appreciate the question. I know the problem.
Thank you.
I would like to say that Senator McKenna has now joined us. Brenda, I saw you there for a minute, Senator, and then there you are.
Hi, Mayor.
And Senator, thank you for the Zoom. That was wonderful. That was a neat session. Guys, I'm gonna let you go talk to the senator. Thank you all so much. If you have any questions, I put my stuff on the website. I'm gonna go eat.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time and information.
Mayor.
We'll all be bugging you. Don't worry
I
about that.
I put everything down so you have it. Good luck, Senator. They're a tough crowd.
Yeah, we are. Thank you.
Don't leave me.
So,
Hi,
Senator
Mayor.
McKenna.
Thank you for
Hi, how are
taking-
you? Of course.
Very good. How is everyone?
I think we're doing okay. I guess the question is, how are you doing? What is the Senate looking like this term?
Ooh, wow. Well, you know what I do like, everyone? That all the caucus meetings that we've been participating in so far, I am really proud how everyone is living with ambiguity. And you know, the temperaments have been pretty darn good in light of what we're facing. So I'm really proud of my colleagues.
So you're here. I'm gonna ask the counselors if they have specific questions for you. Does any of our counselors have a question for Senator McKenna here? Quiet crowd, Council Murray.
Yeah, thank you, Senator McKenna. Thank you, Mayor. How do you think the sessions is coming together? I know Mr. Representative Eli had talked about we're going virtual, or you guys are going virtual this year, but how do you see the sessions kind of stacking up, so to speak?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Murray. So the Senate is going to be a little bit different than the House, where the House is going to be most of their proceedings are going to be virtual. So far, leadership has us doing kind of one-off, one-on when it comes to being on the floor, and then when it comes to participating in committee meetings virtually. So far, we will start on the 19th of January, and then continue to have floor meetings through the 22nd. And then the following week, we're going to be virtual. And then the 1st of February will be on the floor. And then the 2nd through the 9th of February, we're going to be virtual. Now, keep in mind too, when I say floor, there's going to be some senators that are going to be participating from their offices, because the important thing is not to have so many humans congregated in such a space for a certain amount of time. And we know how long some of the debates can go, right? And so there's going to be a lot of movement. The good thing is the Legislative Council Services, they've been spending a lot of time and funds to fix the gaps in technology, to ensure that we have redundancies when it comes to how we're going to host virtual meetings, so that they want to limit the amount of the possibility that our meetings will just be abrupt and stop. Now, that said, of course, we are asking all of our constituents to be patient if meetings do come up into an unexpected stop. And to know too that the chairs will suspend the meetings if that happens, again, to ensure that there's transparency and that those who attend the meetings do not miss discussions, votes, and the like.
Thank you.
Senator, one other question, I guess, given the events of the past week, has there been any discussion in the caucuses about disruptions at the roundhouse by maybe agitators or demonstrations? Have there been talks about that to avoid having you guys, shelter in place if there's something going on?
Yes, so the last time we had a caucus meeting was Saturday. And leadership explained to us that they are having a security assessment done. The results, I believe, will be shared with us this coming Saturday because of the rhetoric and the flyers that we've seen that are supposed to occur this weekend. So we're very mindful of it. And I also shared with leadership how concerned I am about firearms being allowed in the roundhouse. So I want you to know, Mr. Murray, that leadership is looking into it, and I'm hopeful that this coming Saturday they'll reveal that with us, and we will act accordingly.
Thank you. Any other questions for the senator? I'm going to ask you, Senator McKenna, what do you think we can reasonably expect to see in terms of legislation getting out of the Senate this year? We know it's going to be difficult, but
yeah,
that affect us as municipalities, especially.
So your Representative Eli may have shared with you previous or at the meeting that they are limited to 5 bills per legislator. In the Senate, we don't have a number of limit. However, Senator Mimi Stewart did say to expect our being able to pass bills will be at the rate of 50% of what it has in the past. So consequently, with that rate, they are telling us, the senators, not to take on too much, right? Because it simply is not going to work this time. So with that in mind, I'm being very careful and mindful not to exceed 10, where I am sponsoring a bill and where I have to really be in the weeds with the language of the bill and be able to represent it at the various committee meetings. That doesn't prevent us, of course, from supporting bills by a vote. So, yeah, okay. Imagine that. I didn't anticipate it, but 50% less bills in the Senate chamber is what they are estimating.
Thank you for that information. Councilor Burkett.
Can I ask a follow-up to that? What are they attributing that significant decrease to? Is it technology issues? Is it time issues? Is it financial issues? I'm curious why they think it's going to be half as efficient as usual.
One of the considerations is staff, and I speculate, Mr. Burkett, it has to do, because this is my first year. I speculate it's because so many of us are not going to have that one-on-one access to legislative services right in the building. We're going to be very dependent upon electronic means. I believe that's what leadership is estimating. We simply are not going to have the process that we have in the past. And so consequently, they think it's just going to be, it's just going to slow down.
Does it answer your question, Councilor Burkett?
I think so. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out if technology hurts or helps the cause.
Yeah. For us here, of course, Senator McKenna, we have forwarded you our brochure and our capital outlay project requests. I think you should be prepared to have various counselors corresponding with you. And we know that those kinds of decisions are generally maybe not made until further down the road in the session. But Representative Eli said he thought that there would actually be capital outlay money. Is that your understanding as well?
Yes, my understanding is there's going to be an excess of 300 million, with a third going to the governor's office, a third going to the House, and a third coming to the Senate. And so I don't think it's going to be as dire as we anticipated. And I did meet with another group, the Sandoval Municipal Flood Municipal Group. I know I'm messing up their acronym.
I bet it's SCAFCA. Is it
Yes,
SCAFCA?
that's the
Yes, yes.
one.
It's a mouthful.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
And you know what I conveyed with sincerity, Mayor and councilors, is I really want to pull resources of those willing legislators. You know, they've got needs. The village of Corrales has needs. The town of Bernalillo. I really want to get a big picture of all the capital outlay requests, which are going to be all online, by the way, and see what we all can do to help pitch in and get those high priority needs addressed. So I really want to work with all of my fellow Democrats and the Republicans. You know, we work for you and it's fellow Americans, and I really want to pull together our resources and take care of critical needs.
Well, I really appreciate you zooming in to speak with us tonight. And I think it's very important for us to know our representatives, and Corrales has always been in kind of a lucky position. We do have good relationship with our elected representatives and senators. So thank you so much. Good luck to you.
Thank you very much. And I really appreciate the brochure with the capital outlay. The secretaries and the analysts are going to be trained next week on that system.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Mayor, has the village of Corrales already applied?
Well, our list has been submitted.
Okay.
I will ask Aaron, is there anything, I believe we've registered all of our projects, all the information about them has been submitted. That's correct, isn't it, Aaron?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Oh, great.
So
Okay.
we should be on the money. You know, there's a whole series of dates that we need to meet, and our village council always does do that by resolution, which has happened several months ago. But yes, at that time, I don't think we really knew if there was going to be any money, but all the groundwork that we know of has been done. And,
good.
and I know our clerk will continue to stay right on top of that. That's critical for us.
Yeah, I'm relieved too, because you know, this being the long session, the woes of the pandemic, I was getting very concerned that critical needs weren't going to be addressed, but I'm feeling better about it. I'm going to put my information in the chat.
Thank you.
For questions that someone may have later on this evening or tomorrow morning or something like that. 505. Okay.
Well, again, I thank you so much, Senator McKenna, and best of luck to you. And we will be in touch with you for municipal things that we're looking at and for impacts that whatever the Senate is doing may have for us. So thank you.
Yeah, and I'm going to do my best, Mayor, to convene with the leadership groups. I hope during the session, but certainly post-session. But I think it'd be important to convene during the session, because that's valuable feedback for me. I don't know what's down the road, right? But I want us to be able to make timely decisions, and I need you to help me make good decisions.
Well, and that's important for us because, you know, there's a typical way that municipalities, we might go up to the roundhouse and physically interact with people, and that's going to be more difficult and more challenging this session. So I appreciate your willingness to confer with us, because I think that'll be important.
Yeah, I work for you. It's not the other way around.
Thank you.
And I'm also, it's to be determined, but when it's going to be, but I am going to hold office hours during the week when I'm not in committee meetings. So I can have phone calls or Zoom meetings with constituents. And my secretary and analyst will set that up.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Senator,
Yes.
I'm sorry, who's speaking to me?
Councilor Waldman.
Yes.
How are
Hi,
you, Senator?
Counselor.
Your contact information is not in the chat. Could you maybe give it to us verbally?
Oh, it's not there?
I have it, Councilor Waldman. It is in the chat. Yeah, I can see it. So, and anyone who wants it, I'll put, just shoot me an email and I can shoot it out real quick.
Excellent. Thank you.
It's there. Thank you again. Communications can be difficult, but we'll work it out. Thank you so much,
We're
Senator.
going to do well. We pulled together. We're going to do well. I have high hopes for all of us. Okay.
Thank
Good
you.
luck, Senator.
Thank you. Good luck. Good night. I do not think that our remaining representative has appeared yet. Aaron, is that correct?
Yeah, I have not seen or heard from Jane. I sent her a text a little bit ago, but I haven't heard anything back. And just so you're aware, Mayor, we did lose Councilor Lucero just like a minute ago, so he's trying to get back in.
Okay, well, that's fine. I think there's something in the air. I guess we all need that new broadband, right? We desperately need it here in Corrales. I don't know what to say. Okay, so we're going to return to our regular agenda. We were on item 4, which is consideration, action, and approval of a professional services agreement between the Mid-Region Council of Governments, that's Mr. Cog, and the Village of Corrales to provide for the review and preparation of a revised zoning ordinance, Chapter 18, for the Village of Corrales. And we do have a presentation by members of the COG. So I'm going to turn that over to Maida Rubin, Sandy Geiser. I think I saw Peyton Showalter was here a little bit ago. Don't know if he's still here, but I'm going to turn it over to you. Please go ahead.
Hi there, Mayor, members of the council, and everyone else. Good evening. I hope you can hear me all right. I'm going to attempt to screen share, and then we will start this little presentation. Sandy, yes, there you are. Okay.
I'm here. So while Maida is sharing that, Peyton Showalter is one of our regional planners, who will be helping us with this the zoning ordinance update. She can jump in if she needs to as we go through the presentation, but she is online with us.
Here's Peyton. I see her.
Yep. Okay. Good. Thanks, Peyton.
All right. Can everyone see my screen? Let me go into a presentation mode.
Yes. That was not me. I don't know who said that.
Okay. I think we're ready. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
All right. So I'm Sandy Geiser. I am the Regional Planning Manager for the Mid-Region Council of Governments. And Maida Rubin is Senior Planner. She will be the project manager for this endeavor. And then we also have 2 other staff members that will be helping us. Peyton Showalter, who's on tonight, and then Channing Hoffman is also one of our regional planners. So Maida, I guess, can you advance the slides for me? Thank you. So before we got started about the discussion on the scope of work, we wanted to make sure that we have some new members, and it doesn't hurt to start at the beginning and make sure we're all on the same page, is talk a little bit about the Mid-Region Council of Governments. The Council of Governments was actually organized by the federal government in the 70s, and the state has authorized Council of Governments to exist in New Mexico. Can you go to the next slide for me, please? So the Mid-Region Council of Governments is in the middle of the state, and we cover like 4 1/4 counties. You can see that on the map. We cover Bernalillo County, Valencia County, Sandoval County, Torrance County, and southern Santa Fe County. And typically, we don't go into parts of a county, but because Edgewood their characteristics of travel patterns are more in line with the Albuquerque area. So they requested a few years ago to become part of our council of governments. And there's 7 council of governments in New Mexico. And they're if you do a Google search on council of governments in New Mexico, you won't hit all 7 because they're not all named council of governments. Some of the council of governments are organized by economic development district, but we all have the same program, basically the same type of funding. And so we're here to provide technical assistance for our member government. So go to the next slide, please, Mita. So this is an org chart of the Mr. Cog. Now each cog is organized a little bit differently. Mr. Cog is the largest cog in New Mexico. So we have a few more programs that some of the other cogs don't. So we do have under the big umbrella of Mr. Cog is Rio Metro, Workforce, the MPO, which Corrales is part of the MPO, is very active on that board, the Rural Transportation Board, Economic Development, and then we will be talking about the local planning assistance. The next slide. So what we call it LPA, the local planning assistance, and we provide workshops, ordinance revisions, we do comprehensive plans, we do mapping assistance, we help review applications, grant applications, and we also provide data, socioeconomic data. Next slide. So current projects in Corrales. Right now, Meta is working on the map for the 911 emergency responders. She's working closely with Lori on that. We also we're also doing the on-demand mapping services. We've done some zone map updates and some special area mapping as needed. And then we also do some on-demand technical support for planning commission trainings, and we will also do some research. So go to the next slide. So the next slide, we'll be talking about the long range and current planning. So this is from the Corrales zoning ordinance, and it talks about health, safety, and welfare, and that's what planners are focused on when we work with the community is promoting the health, safety, and welfare of the residents, and this is reflected in the Corrales zoning ordinance. Next slide. So we always make sure that we look at state statute to make sure that we are consistent, and the state statutes zoning is in accordance with the comp plan, and then also the Mexico state statutes empowers municipalities and counties to be a planning authority, establish a planning commission, and it also allows municipalities to adopt land use goals and master plans, or what the master plan in the state statutes is your comprehensive plan. Next slide. So consistency. You need to your comprehensive plan needs to be consistent with your zoning and your subdivision ordinances. The comp plan is your policy plan. It is your long range plan, looks towards the future, and how they're implemented is through your zoning and your subdivision ordinance. So that's what we always keep in mind when we do work on zoning ordinances and comprehensive plans. Next slide. And now is the scope of work. Did anyone have any questions on anything previous before Maida starts talking about the zoning ordinance scope of work?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Oh, this is Councilor Burkett. Sorry. So we are in need of an updated comprehensive plan.
Yes.
How does our age of our current comprehensive plan affect your ability to do zoning ordinances that are in line with a comprehensive plan that also needs revision?
Well, your comp plan is pretty old, as comp plans go. Your data, your socioeconomic data is out of date because it used 2000 census data, and because you were in between, we had the 2010 data had not been released when that ordinance, the comp plan was done. So you do need to update your comprehensive plan, but you have to remember your comprehensive plan is a policy document, and the way that you actually implement that comprehensive plan is through your zoning ordinance. And an assessment that we've done is that your zoning ordinance, because it does implement those policies, really needs to be updated. So yes, you do need to do it. You do need to update your comprehensive plan.
Right.
Do you have anything to add to that, Mita?
Yes, there are a lot of things in the zoning ordinance that we feel are pressing and will not be in conflict with the comprehensive plan update or current policies to be updated, but need to be updated to help you guys out.
Question is, go ahead, Mayor.
Yes, I just want to know, I mean, we know that the 2020 census data is supposed to be coming out, and I'm assuming that we really need that census data in order to reformulate or redraft the first portion of any comprehensive plan. Is that correct? I mean, because we're working on 2000 data right now.
Right, it would be very optimal to use the 2020 data. The previous date I'd heard for the release of that data is March of this year. It looks like it may be further delayed. So it would be very helpful to use that data. One other reason to not start on a gigantic comprehensive plan update at the moment is, losing my train of thought.
Probably the pandemic. It's a very public process.
That is actually my next. Yes, doing a huge public outreach process over Zoom and over online platforms is a little challenging. It's not insurmountable. However, you want a robust public process in order to do a comprehensive plan update. And so we feel that the comp plan update should happen fairly soon, but starting it right now might not be the easiest.
Question, this is Councilor Murray.
I think Councilor Burkett still has his hand up, so.
Yeah, so I want the same thing for the zoning process, though. I'd like it to be a public process, and I'd like the citizens of Corrales to weigh in. And I mean, one, we need to find a way to do that. And two, it seems like there would be a fair amount of overlap in the processes in doing the zoning ordinance and the comprehensive plan. And it seems like a waste of resources to not utilize your guys' expertise for both of those projects at the same time, since the spirit of them is going to be the same.
They are fairly different, separate, large efforts. So doing them concurrently, both by us, would be pretty large of an effort. However, for the zoning ordinance, we agree it should be a robust public process, but it does not necessitate quite the same level of involvement throughout the whole process for input gathering as a comprehensive plan would. And I'll talk about the timeline here in a minute that we would like to propose, but hopefully by the time it gets to the point where we really do need some input from the public, although it will be public and available for weigh-in throughout the process, hopefully we'll be back in person, but we'll see.
Councilor Murray.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I want to follow up on Councilor Burkett's comment about the impact of our current comprehensive plan on this process that you're advocating. If we're working off of old data, it seems like to me that that's not going to be bringing our zoning ordinances into compliance unless we have the new data from the comprehensive plan.
Go ahead. Would either Maida?
Yeah.
Sandy, would you like to respond to that?
Sure. Sure, I can give it a shot and then maybe Maida can jump in. So for the zoning ordinance, since it is a legal document and adopted by ordinance and is part of the police powers that's afforded to municipalities, we don't use this, we would not use the demographics of the comprehensive plan. What we look at when we do a zoning ordinance, we look at the comprehensive plan for consistency, and we would be able to propose if there's some major changes in the zoning ordinance, we at that time could recommend some new policies in the new comprehensive plan. So the zoning ordinance is really the way we need to go right now for the municipality, and then go back in at a later date and update your comprehensive plan to reflect any new zoning language that wasn't incorporated in the original comprehensive plan.
Right. The reason why we feel strongly that this can be accomplished first without wasting effort is that there are a lot of necessary updates that can be done now and are not really a comprehensive plan, but would bring the document into better legal compliance, such as the sign section. There are other language needs that need to be clarified and generally updated. So while it is informed somewhat by the comprehensive plan, it is not driven as specifically by the comp plan in a way where it would conflict. It's a little different.
Do you want to continue with your presentation?
Sure.
So I'll talk a little bit through the scope of work, and please stop me if there are questions. We can just keep those ongoing. So to frame our conversation, I just wanted to start by talking about our deliverables and major benchmarks in this process. So the final product is, generally speaking, the text of Chapter 18, the zoning ordinance. That's a final document ready for council adoption. So it doesn't expand to the comprehensive plan update or anything like that. Additionally, as Sandy mentioned, we do zone updates for you guys and mapping services. And while Lori and I go back and forth periodically and make updates to the zone map as needed, it would be important to us to make sure at that juncture that the zone map was updated. In our work with several communities doing ordinance updates, we found that there are a few major points of analysis that have really helped us get out of some unforeseen challenges during the process. And so they really inform the conversation and the process of the zone ordinance update. So one is, of course, reviewing the comprehensive plan. And I believe that prior to this meeting, many of you may have in your packet our scope of work, but it was not necessarily well explained. So please stop me if you have any questions on these points. Our review of the comprehensive plan is only to inform our efforts on the ordinance and make sure that we are avoiding any major pitfalls or policy inconsistencies. So it is not to update the comprehensive plan. The non-conforming lot analysis we found really helpful, particularly in our work with the town of Bernalillo. It is not to identify properties that are out of compliance or anything, but it is a very basic mapping analysis that allows us to see at a very basic level the lots that are in compliance with the minimum lot standards and not. And this is really important in our conversation about updating the zoning ordinance, because if there are a lot of non-conforming lots or in a very particular way or area of town, that kind of tells us that there are changes on the regulatory side that need to be addressed because the ordinance doesn't necessarily reflect the plan anymore. Yes.
Councilor Murray?
Thank you. Yes, that does bring up some questions, because will your analysis take into consideration the topography? Since we are slightly or a lot different from Bernalillo, because Bernalillo is mostly flat, but when our topography starts sloping up towards the mesa, it's a lot of these lots were driven by the old land grants, and a lot of these lots are narrow, and that also presents an issue with non-conforming lot, as you say. I'm just curious about, are you going to take into account the topography and the the old land grants that were in place that drove these lot sizes?
That's a really great question. Thank you. I would really like to be able to take that into account as much as we can. I believe that to a certain extent, we can look at some topography and assess that a little bit. However, we want to make sure that we're limiting our analysis to things that are affected in the zoning ordinance, which to a certain extent that definitely would be affected.
Sandy, did you have a comment on that?
Well, the thing with doing a topographic analysis would be looking to see if we actually have that type of data. What we typically do with the non-conforming lot analysis is, well, let me give you an example of what happened in Bernalillo. They have a lot of non-conforming lots because they have a lot of little lots that were created back in the 1800s, 1900s. And unfortunately, the way Town of Bernalillo's zoning ordinance was written, it didn't allow development on that lot, which was a taking. So what we did is we wanted to see if there was a concentrated area of non-conforming lots in town. And we were assured by staff that there were just in one certain area, but when Maida actually did an analysis, we found out they were all over town. So that framed how we wrote that section on the non-conforming.
Well, I'm sorry, go ahead, Maida.
I was just going to say, to the point on topography, excuse me, one thing that might be easy to do if we can get some contour information, if we see a concentration of non-conforming lots, it may come to light when you overlay topography that is a very big contributing factor. And so we would need to kind of steer some of the regulations to assist in that area, if that makes sense.
Right, and we do have regulations here regarding slope, and we have certain kinds of soils that make certain lots really difficult to build on. And I would assume that, you know, all of that we would have some data to look at that.
Any more questions before I keep going?
Okay, go ahead.
Well, it's just one more comment, Mayor, that I think when I was serving on planning and zoning back in the early 2000s, it was really apparent to us that on the planning and zoning that a lot of the old land grants were narrow because they had to have access to the river to water. So consequently, the lots went up to the bluff and they were really narrow. And a lot of times it makes it really difficult for development to take place because if the lot is less than even a road width, you know, you can't put a house on there along with the road and some other things. So it's really a lot of the land grant drove a lot of the development around here because we always urged the developers, hey, buy up a lot of these small, narrow lots and make a big lot, you know, so that you can do some development on it. But I think that's what worries me the most is, like the mayor said, we have regulations in place for the slope and we want to try to prevent any erosion for the existing homeowners that are downslope from where these possible lots are going to be. And so we need to make sure we look at that and we don't impede on somebody else's property rights.
Correct. I think that will definitely be within the purview. That's one of the reasons that we would be looking at the zoning ordinance in order to be able to make more data-driven decisions that are going to apply equally. Maida, did you want to go on?
Sure, and that's exactly the reason why the non-conforming lot analysis is helpful in this instance, because once we can identify a cause for why the development hasn't really fit the ordinance very well in particular areas, then we can workshop as a committee, as the council, some possible policy options to address those things and make sure we can allow people to develop on their property and things like that. So the other major point of analysis that we wanted to guys is a zone matrix. And this is a fancy way of saying an Excel that has all of the zone elements in it next to each other. For example, the permissive and conditional uses, the height restrictions, things of that nature. And when you look at it across all of the zones, one thing we found when we were working with the village of Tijeras is that they kind of had a duplicate zone. When you actually compare all of the stuff in it, there wasn't even really a need for one of the zones. So it's important to know inside and out what is in each zone as a regulation and talk about its usefulness. Is it working for this zone? Things like that. So that helps inform that conversation. Any other questions about this before I move on?
All right, go ahead.
All right. So here's our intended approach. We typically work with a steering committee that is usually formed with the Planning and Zoning Commission or comprised by the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it doesn't have to be necessarily or limited to that group of people. There are three major focus areas that we feel necessitate major collaborative, iterative process. And that is work on the zones. So talking about the items in the zone matrix, workshopping them, making sure they make sense to everybody and the village. The non-conforming lots, as we've discussed. And also diagramming out the application and approvals process. Sometimes it's easy to get into a pattern of knowing that you do this and then you do that and then you do that in order to apply for any type of land use change. However, that's not reflective anymore of what's in the ordinance. We want to make sure that the process that's happening is being reflected in the ordinance, and even more importantly, that it's very legible to the average person how that process works. And that may already be the case. So we just want to make sure that we talk through with everyone and make sure that's the case.
Thank you.
We also have found that it's really important to have council involvement throughout this process. So what we would like to propose in this process is having some steering committee meetings to workshop each area of focus. And I'll show you a timeline and kind of lay out visually how I thought about this before in a moment. But we want to have committee workshops followed by a joint committee and council workshop. All of these are publicly open work sessions, so they won't take in public comments necessarily, but they will be open to the public. And then the council will be able to weigh in at each stage on what they think of what we've been up to, how they'd like it to look. And it's a really helpful thing to have someone come in right after you've talked about it a bunch and add a new perspective. So we found that that's very helpful. And then working with the Corrales staff. So there are a lot of parts of the ordinance that may need some text edits for clarity or some updating to be in compliance regulatorily. However, this isn't something that we need to drag everyone through the whole process. And so we had envisioned working with Corrales staff to propose some text edits and make sure it's coherent as a document, that type of work. And then it would, of course, come back to the committee and the council for review and kind of a check-in. So here is generally the timeline that we had envisioned. We've broken this up into about 13 months. And as you'll see, each committee session on a particular topic that I discussed is followed by a joint council work session for the zones, the non-conformity regulations, the approvals process, and hopefully throughout, but it will kind of depend how it goes and what we're up to, working with the Corrales staff to do some text edits, and then of course followed by a joint council and planning and zoning workshop. And then we left a large chunk of time at the end, perhaps 2 or more months, to make sure that it can go through the approvals process. This is for public comment. This is to make sure it has time to be introduced at planning and zoning and then recommended to council. Typically, we find that it's helpful to introduce it at council, have discussion, and take a month to allow for public comments and to chew it over yourselves. It's a lot to digest, and then to ultimately, hopefully, approve it. And in this process, there will see a lot of flexibility because as has been pointed out, sometimes you find something out that really needs to be worked on. For example, the effect of steep slopes or something like that. So there is some flexibility built into these, this whole process. And that is most of what I had. So I would love to take some more questions if you have any.
I can only see a few of you. I don't know whether it's because of screen sharing. Do I have any questions from counselors other than Counselor Burkett or Counselor Murray?
Yes, Counselor.
Thank you. Counselor Waldman.
Hi, it's good to see you again. A question about the timeline. 13 months seems like a long time. And my one concern would be that if you get started, let's say the 1st of February or thereabouts, that this is going to take us into an election period in March of 2022. My preference would be to maybe wrap this up by the end of February of 2022, so that the current council mayor will be fully cognizant, rather than as we came in, there were things that were pending that for new councilors that made it somewhat difficult. So just a suggestion if that might be possible.
It might be possible. And the reason why it is originally stated as 13 months instead of 12 months, which is pretty typical, fairly fast in some cases, is because we're looking at starting in January, I believe, but doing final approvals at a council meeting the following December is not always realistic. So we wanted to build in some time. So it may be possible to do it a little faster with that in mind.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Mayor, this
Yes.
is Kevin.
Councilor Lucero, please.
First of all, let me apologize for something happened to my computer here that it's just kicked me right off, and I'm very difficult to get back on.
It's okay.
It's
Go for
always
it
very
before you get
untimely.
thrown out again. Go for it.
First of all, you know, this is I think this is going to be a big undertaking, and it's a long time in coming. And I know it took a lot to get to this point. I know it's been needing to be done and wanted to be done for a long, long time. So I appreciate that we are actually going through this undertaking. Probably one of the biggest points I wanted to point out and just get some confirmation on, and thank you to Lori for taking the time to explain a lot of this to me. I know she's going to be very busy, and I appreciate it. I have 100% confidence that it's in good hands with Lori and the Mr. Cog personnel, and I appreciate that. But one thing I want to make clear, not only to myself and maybe just get some clarification, is that there's going to be a few of ordinances that are going to be looked at and possibly updated, reworded, clarified, or otherwise. And i.e., you know, not only the unconforming lots, but maybe some clarification on slopes, maybe some clarification on auxiliary buildings and the like. And if I'm wrong, I like to get some. I like to know about it. But that was a real big issue for me. The second part of that is, you know, and I know she touched on it a little bit as far as public input coming into this. I think that's going to be probably the biggest thing. The biggest part of this whole ordeal is that we need to be very transparent in this whole process. So I appreciate, you know, the public input coming in at whatever time, but I want to make sure that is always it's always a factor in this. So I appreciate that. So I want to make sure that comes in.
Sure. Thank you for your comments. Yes, so for the transparency, that's very important to us too. And we want to make sure that these work sessions are publicly noticed properly. So, you know, they may be on Zoom for a while. However, we want to make them open to the public to join and listen in the conversation. So that is very important to us. For your first point about the intermingled ordinances that may be affected, it's possible, and that's why we work with Lori very closely to make sure that he's able to, when it's outside of the scope of the zoning ordinance, work with us to perhaps recommend some changes elsewhere and consistency, because things do touch and sometimes affect each other.
Mayor, this is Councilor
Great.
Councilor Lucero, are you finished?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Certainly, no problem. Councilor Murray?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I think one factor, if the steering committees is going to be formed, I would suggest that each councilor be allowed to suggest a person from their district to sit in along with the Planning and Zoning Commission and the steering committee, or however it's made up, so that we do have public input into this, into the steering committee and then into the process, because when we get into these joint sessions between the planning, zoning, and the council, we're not going to allow the public to speak. I want to make sure that we've at least had public input, you know, at the beginning of the process and during the process. So is that a feasible item?
What are your thoughts, Sandy? I don't see why that would be a problem. I think that it might be really helpful. There is a sweet spot where a group is ungainly between that and too small and you don't get enough input, but potentially that could be doable. Sandy, what are your thoughts?
Yes, I think that is. And Mayor, you might want to weigh in on that if you've done that type of process before.
I think that it's very important that the community have confidence that the public is being heard. I do agree that if the group gets too loud, you know, I mean, too large, then we cannot, everybody knows that it can get too large. So I think, but I do think in looking at the makeup of the steering committee, let's look at our options and see the best way that we can make sure that we have input. I mean, I think that's the biggest. I know, and you know, I have absolute confidence in the COG that this is going to be a public process. I mean, there's no point in the village redoing a zoning ordinance if the zoning ordinance isn't in, you know, in sync with what our, you know, what we need to be doing. It's not going to make, I want to make this clear, it's not going to make everybody happy because we are taking on some ambiguities in our zoning ordinance so that we can give some predictable outcomes. And so, you know, but that's different from not letting people feel that they are really part of the process. So
yeah, Mayor, this is Councilor Murray again. I just want to amplify your comments there a little bit, because when I first looked at the scope of work and the timeline, I was not happy with it because it was too ambiguous for my personal taste. Most contracts I've ever seen, even I've had discussions with Ron and also the attorney, Mr. Audio, I thought the ambiguity was too broad in scope for the amount of money that we were going to be paying. So
Councilor Murray,
can
I just say this is the services contract. It's not a construction contract. It's a services contract.
I understand that, but
and so there needs to be some flexibility in it. And I think what the ambiguity, I don't think there's really huge amounts of ambiguity. I will speak in support of the contract because these are professional planners. They've done this before in other areas. And I think they kind of know, but I think what we need to look at is that are the areas that are really important to us to do day-to-day governance within our planning and zoning department. And that's what's really going to be driving some of this. We don't want to be so inflexible that we're not allowing that to happen.
No, but Mayor, my other comment is that when I did a search on the village ordinances for zoning, there was 84 hits. And a lot of them have to do just with the planning and zoning administrator. That was basically it. But the point was that with the ambiguity that was given in the scope of work, I was a little bit unhappy because it didn't, let's say, just chapter 18. Now that's what she's come out and said in the presentation.
Well, good.
Is the
so
chapter 18 text.
That concern has been addressed. So that's good.
Yeah.
It absolutely is major league on chapter 18 because in any municipality, your land use ordinance is where you're going to get your most hits. But it may, as Councilor Lucero pointed out, it may bleed into some other ordinances, and you know we'll just have to go for it. And do you, Maida, Sandy, do you feel fairly confident now with your presentation and that you've covered what you want our counselors to know?
I think.
Okay. Okay.
I do want to address the ambiguity because you will have a deliverable. Your deliverable will be a chapter 18 that is current and consistent with state statute and any Supreme Court cases that have come down the last few years. That's a deliverable. You'll have a new zoning ordinance. And our goal is to make it so that a resident or a developer that wants to come into Corrales can pick up that ordinance and knows what the process is. That's always my goal.
We want it to be clear, unambiguous, the same every time, not a lot of leeway, easier on Lori, which we hear a lot, easier on you all.
I think that we've had adequate discussion. I'd really like to call for a vote. Do I have a motion on this contract?
I'll make the motion.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second? All right, I have a motion and a second. I'm going to take a voice vote, of course. Counselor Knight,
Aye.
Counselor Lucero,
Aye.
Counselor Burkett,
Aye.
Counselor Murray,
No.
Counselor Waldman.
Aye.
All right, thank you very much. I know that Maida will actually be attending a meeting tomorrow of the full planning and zoning with their subcommittees that have been working so hard on a couple of these issues. So we will be getting a lot of information on this over the next few months. So thank you very much. All right, I'm going to move on. Thank you for your time tonight. I'm going to move on to item 5, which is consideration, action, and approval of resolution 2101. That's a resolution to enter an agreement SAP 20 E2206 STB, the amount of $25,000, authorizing the assignment of officers and agents with the state of the New Mexico Environmental Department loan agreement. Do I have a motion?
So
I
moved.
move to approve resolution 21-01.
And I think Councilor Waldman, was that a second from you?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion? All right, let's take a vote on that. Councilor Waldman?
Actually, Mayor, if I could, there are several spelling, very minor spelling errors in this.
Yes.
There's an update.
Have those been corrected, Aaron?
Yes, they have been corrected at this point.
In that
Yes,
case,
our clerk has been trying to work remotely. That happened to him last Thursday.
Yeah.
And I think he just had to say there's a little bit of a delay in his equipment at home, and he was sort of embarrassed, but I told him, you know what? It's okay.
it's okay. You do some attention. In that case,
All right. So let's pick up. Councilor Waldman, did you vote already? I'm sorry.
Aye.
All right. Councilor Murray,
Aye.
Councilor Burkett,
Aye.
Councilor Lucero,
Aye.
Councilor Knight.
Aye.
Okay, thank you so much. We're now going to go down to consideration item 6, consideration, action, and approval of ordinance 2101. That's an ordinance providing for the rezoning of Conservancy Tract 66, 67A, and 67B from C, commercial, to A1, agricultural and rural residential. Do I have a motion?
I move we accept the ordinance 21-01.
Do I have a second?
second.
All right, thank you, Councilor Waldman. Discussion on item 6?
Mayor, this is Councilor Murray.
Yes, Councilor Murray.
Is the applicant present for questions?
Yes?
I'd like to ask I've got a series of questions I'd like to ask them before we push on with this.
All right. Who is the applicant here?
Me, Barbara.
All right. Hi, Barbara.
Hi, Joanne.
Go ahead, Councilor Murray.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. So the application states that your intention is to operate the property as a short-term rental. Section 1837 under permissive uses lists short-term rentals as a permissive use on the Corrales Road commercial area and is subject to a site approval plan or a site plan approval. Why should the village allow you to have this property revert back to A1 zoning?
Because it is extreme. Lori, do you want to talk about that? You might be able to do it more precisely than I am. I mean, essentially, it's very difficult to have that lot conform to commercial.
Go
What
ahead.
seems to be the
Go
problem?
ahead, Lori. I think we'll let Lori, as head of planning and zoning, address this. Go ahead.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, Councilor, Mayor, and other councilors. So at the Planning and Zoning Commission hearing where the zone map amendment was approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission, there was also an application for a residential short-term rental. So regardless of the zoning of the property, there is an application process for a short-term rental. So that has been approved. And of course, it's contingent, this particular application is contingent upon it becoming residential versus commercial. It's commercial now, reverting back to residential, which is actually the opposite of what you would normally see. Most folks are wanting to zone to commercial where they have more permissive uses. But in this case, regardless of what it's zoned, there is an application process for a short-term rental. In this case, it's just already passed as residential, contingent upon it being approved tonight, which is a separate application from what we're hearing tonight.
Lori, the problem I'm having is you stated in your report that the commercial property zoning has a higher set of requirements for a short-term rental because it is in the commercial area and it is zoned commercial. Is that correct?
Well, actually, what I meant to say, so the applicants, if this becomes a residential property, they're going to lose the ability to operate commercial businesses, and it will instead be subject to either home occupation requirements or, in this case, short-term residential, short-term rental. So when you have a piece of commercially zoned property, you are allowed to do a lot more with it. And we're talking about general commercial uses, not the short-term rental. Short-term rental, basically, it's the same outcome, a little different application process.
But what I'm trying to get at, what is the difficulty in making this property meet code under the commercial application?
Well, there's a lack of parking for any kind of a large business. For the short-term rental, there was ample parking. But if you wanted to do any kind of a retail, restaurant, you'd be out of luck. There's just not enough parking for something of that scope.
Yeah, but okay. So we're still talking short-term rental, and you indicate that there are 4 parking spots out front, which is more than adequate for a short-term rental. So if the parking is an issue, which I don't think it is, because under short-term rental, you're only renting out the 4 rooms and you only require the 4 spots. So I don't see that being an issue under a commercial application. Also, Ms. Pine, you also stated that you operate other short-term rentals. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Do you have any other short-term rental properties in the commercial zone?
There are 2 rooms being currently used as short-term rentals.
In the commercial area?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have other short-term rental properties in the village?
No.
Are any of these, are you operating this as a business then? Is that your primary purpose?
I'd like clarification on the question.
Okay. Are you operating these short-term rentals as a business?
Same as any other short-term rental, yeah.
Okay. Is the income from your short-term rentals being reported as personal income or as a business income?
Is this?
Yes, Mayor, I have the floor. Thank you. I would like to
No,
finish.
I'm sorry. I feel like I need to ask our counselor, our legal counsel, if we're going a little bit far afield here. No offense, but I think it's important. Randy?
Well, there's one thing that I was going to bring up in a minute here, but given the length of Councilor Murray's questions, what is a step that we did not take in this, when we are considering the passage of an ordinance, it needs to be a public hearing. And so members of the public would have the opportunity to comment on this. And that should be done before we get to councilor questions. And I just want to make sure there aren't members of the public who are wanting to speak on this. And we haven't heard from the applicant yet before Councilor Murray started asking his questions. And so, and then Councilor Murray, I think the most important thing that we need to focus on is the standard for a change of zone when it's asked for by a property owner, and she's asking for essentially a downzoning, and is okay with that. we focus on the issues involving the zone change standard.
Well, that's my trying to get to the point, Mr. Audio, because if she's operating this as a business, it's a commercial entity. I don't see this being a residential business, and since it's in the commercial zone and it is under the permissive uses as a short-term rental, the property needs to stay as a commercial zoning. And that's what I'm trying to drive at, is if this is her business, what makes it any more different from another business across the street? If it is a business entity, it should be staying commercial as it is.
I understand where you're coming from, Counselor. Could we stop for a second and go back to see, to follow our normal process to see if there's what the proponent has to say, and then what any opponents would have to say?
Sure. All
right. Barbara Klein, would you like to speak? You are the proponent.
Yes. Over the time that I've owned that property, it has been very difficult to operate it as a commercial property. We've tried several things there. Parking has always been an issue, partially because of the way the building is sited on the lot. It's very difficult to get around to the back where parking could be, which limits anything that it might be done there commercially. Over the years, the requirements to meet zoning have gotten to the point where when I sat down and talked to Ms. Stout about, what we wanted to do with the property, it became very clear that it was going to be more expensive than I can cover to bring it up to commercial standards. Whereas residential standards, I think we've got it made. So the point is that, being penalized for a property that really isn't viable commercially doesn't make any sense, which is why we requested that it be zoned residential. We've got residential zoning on one side. The other side, which is commercially zoned, is also a residence, which again dramatically restricts what we can do there. And it makes no sense at all for that to be a commercial property.
Thank you. Counselor Audio, do we now take questions from the public?
If there's anyone signed up were there opponents at the Planning Commission, Lori?
So this was publicly noticed for the Planning and Zoning Commission. And yes, there was ample public comment that evening.
Has there been anyone that signed up tonight? Is there anyone there that wants to speak to it before the council?
Can I ask a quick
Aaron?
question? Since Councilor Parker is not technically a counselor yet, would this be the appropriate time for him to make his comment? I saw his hand go up.
Well, that's why I'm checking to see if we have the ability to check in with members of the public, which he still is at this point. And I don't know that anybody signed up. Aaron, did anybody sign up for this item?
Not that I'm aware, Madam Mayor.
All right, so where does that leave us, Randy?
It leaves us with the applicant, staff comment, and then you would do, the council can ask questions of the opponent or staff if they wish, and then you would proceed to a motion and a vote.
All right. All right. I think at this point then, I think that we've heard Councilor Murray's comments. We've heard
Mayor, you have not. I'm not finished yet. I yielded to the floor to let Randy proceed with the
all right, could you,
public input.
All right.
Thank you. So there's just a couple more questions. As conversations I've had with the attorney about the Fair Housing Act, you know, you understand that under the Fair Housing Act and also the American with Disabilities Act, you cannot discriminate against these folks. I was just wondering, is the property ADA compliant?
It's got an ADA bathroom. It has got a ramp. These were both in use during the time that it was a commercial property. They've been viewed by the village. Whether it is absolutely 100% ADA compliant, I cannot really say. But if you look at the architecture of the property, I think we've done the best that we can.
Okay. Well, my final question is, do you think it's fair that you be allowed to operate a business at this property as zoned A1 when the rest of the business owners in the commercial zone have to pay and have to operate their businesses as a commercial entity?
I think first of all, I'm looking at Lori. She is trying to raise her hand here. I'm not sure that that's a fair question, but Lori.
Mayor, councilors, the village of Corrales has what's called a residential short-term rental permit process designed for residential properties. And that's what was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission a few months back.
In my understanding, that's conditional upon the zone change.
Correct.
All right, Councilor Burkett.
I mean, I do have a question to follow up on Councilor Murray's questions. It sounds like this was operated as a short-term rental previously, correct?
It was operated, we were living on the property at the time. It's way too large for us, but there are historical reasons why we had to move into it. And so we rented out part of it as a short-term rental. What changed was that we moved out of the property and need to do something with that property. And when I explored other commercial options, they weren't there. When we explored, you know, taking it in front of planning and zoning as a commercial property was going to cause a lot of issues in terms of trying to comply with the driveway and some of the other things that are in there that just do not work with the current commercial zoning requirements. And so it made the most sense to request that we turn it residential.
Councilor Knight?
Sorry,
Yeah.
can I follow up to that question really quick?
Yes.
Sorry. So to me, it sounds like previously it was operated more like a residential home occupation, short-term rental unit. And now it is more like a commercial business with them not living there. And we're kind of doing the exact opposite in the zoning change, where we're going from what it should have been to what it is instead of vice versa. And to me, it feels like it's more of a business now than it was previously. And the zoning changes, I mean, I'm not sure what the benefit of it is, other than there's obviously some code and some compliance stuff, but it seems like there's gross receipts issues. There's a variety of other things that this adds in a change that really in no way affects their ability to do the business that they want to do there.
Councilor Knight?
Yeah, you know, I think for years that was a residential, and then it was changed to commercial, and now it's going back to residential. I don't see, you know, it's just, I remember Ms. Klein coming in front of P&Z and asking about a restaurant being there when they first bought that, and it didn't go along with there were problems with the kitchen area and things like that. So anyways, to make a long story short, I just wanted to reiterate that P&Z unanimously said that they thought this was okay to have the zone change.
I think I saw your hand, Randy. I think you were trying to get a comment in.
Well, I just, we got started off on kind of a different route tonight, and we hadn't gone through the process. In this case, because it's a zone change of a small piece of property, it is quasi-judicial, and we did need to swear the witnesses, which we did not do at the beginning.
Okay.
So we should do that now, Aaron, and that they swear that they've told the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, and they will continue to do so.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Klein, if you wouldn't mind really quick, just raising your right hand. Do you swear that everything you've said up to this point is true and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
And do you swear and affirm that everything you will say is true and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
I know that, and I'm going to ask for a little guidance here. I believe that Mr. Parker wants to speak as a member of the public or as a witness, and can we allow him to do that if he will be sworn as a witness?
Yes, he can be a witness and he can be sworn, and as long as he's not participating as a counselor, then any counselor can step down from the dais and act as a citizen on any given case as long as they don't vote on it.
Mr. Parker?
Yes, Mr. Parker, real quick, if you would keep your right hand raised, do you swear and affirm to tell the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Mayor Rowe, councilors, just a point of clarification with what I'm understanding this application to be. It's not an application for a zone change to A1 to do short-term rentals. It's a zone change to be A1 in all of those uses associated with A1, and the applicant is then also requesting an application to do short-term rentals as a separate application to this. And so in my head, as I'm listening to this, and Lori, please correct me if I'm wrong, but currently as the building is zoned commercial, the lot dimensions and layout prevent a lot of, if not all, commercial activities to occur on the lot. And so the position that you were taking is that this is an inappropriately zoned lot to be commercial because of the size, shape, access to the rear, and as a result, it is better suited as a A1 lot village. And then should it be changed to A1, Ms. Klein would then be or has already applied to do short-term rentals. Is that kind of a fair assumption on what's happening?
Correct. It just doesn't work for commercial uses. We do have a residential short-term rental permitting process in the village of Corrales, which has already been done and already been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. But the zone change needs to happen just in general. Ms. Klein would like that to happen for the reasons you just enumerated.
And so just to add to that point there, her zone change right now request has nothing to do with what she's doing later on with the lot. It is strictly, she wants it to be an A1 lot, not a commercially zoned lot, correct?
Well, correct.
So if counselors are looking at this in terms of what's being placed in front of them, they would be looking at, should this be an A1 lot and all the uses associated with an A1 lot versus a commercial lot and all the uses associated with a commercial lot?
Absolutely correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I'll shut up now.
Oh, thank you very much.
Mayor, this is Councilor Murray.
Yes.
So, with all due respect to Mr. Parker, I think you've got to, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, and I think I understand where Mrs. Klein is coming from. But our commercial area is zoned for short-term rentals. There's nothing to preclude her from operating this business as a short-term rental in the commercial area as that lot is zoned commercial. There's nothing to prevent that. I don't think the requirements for a short-term rental in the commercial area is as stringent as it would be as for a commercial business like a restaurant or something else. I think that it's unusual. This is one of the first times I've ever seen a property wanting to go back from commercial to A1 zoning. That's typically is not what happens in there. And it's,
well, and I believe that
I don't want to see this flip back and forth.
Okay, well, but I do believe that the property owner has made the proper application before planning and zoning, and that application was approved after considerable public comment.
You know, Mayor, that is contingent upon the zone change amendment.
Yes, I understand, Councilor Murray, but I definitely think at this point, absent, if we have done the correct process, I think we should call for a vote. What do you think, Randy? Where are we?
Yes, if there are no other witnesses and there's no other evidence to be presented, then the public meeting on the proposed zoning ordinance change can be closed, and you can ask for a vote.
All right. I will do that at this point, and I will ask for a motion. I hear a motion.
So move.
I move we accept ordinance 21-01.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you. I'm going to take a voice vote. Mel Knight,
Aye.
Kevin Lucero,
Aye.
Zach Burkett,
Aye.
Stuart Murray,
No.
William Waldman.
Aye.
All right, we have approved ordinance 2101. And we will now, thank you. We will now move forward to K, which is confirmation of appointments. We've had a vacancy on planning and zoning, and I have Nick Harper, who has extensive experience on planning and zoning, has agreed to be a part of planning and zoning. And so I'm asking the council to approve that appointment for the remainder of Commissioner Barnes' term. So do I have a motion?
I move we accept McHarper on P and Z.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All right, I'm going to take a vote on that. Counselor Knight?
Aye.
Counselor Lucero?
Aye.
Counselor Burkett?
Aye.
Counselor Murray?
Aye.
Counselor Waldman?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Now we're getting there, guys. We're going to do announcements or agenda items for our meeting on the 22nd, I believe it is. Do I have any items that people would like to put on the agenda? Counselor Murray.
Hey, Mayor, I would like to hear you talk about what you hope to achieve in the next year. What do you think where the village is going? Kind of like a state of the village address, if you would.
Well, that's interesting. I've done that, and it's posted on the web.
Well, you know, being on the web is one thing, but I think
I put it in my mayor's message, so I'm very, very happy to go over that. And I think also, so thank you. We will be doing that and looking at what we're looking forward to in 2021, which is partially to get out of this pandemic, right?
Yeah. So one other
anything
thing.
Else?
Well, yeah, one other thing is my understanding that there may be some a resolution about short-term rentals and casitas coming up. Is that a fact?
I think that
if I may take this, Mayor, we're looking at that, Councilor Murray. We don't have anything definitive yet, but as you know, we've been working on that, and there may be something on an upcoming agenda.
Well, I think after tonight's discussion about the zone amendment, I think we need to move forward real quick on that because it points out some deficiencies that are in the village.
Yes, sir. Anybody else have an item for the agenda on the 22nd? All right. At this point, I'm sorry, Councilor Waldman.
Yes, two things. One, discussion perhaps, and Ron can maybe jump in on this. Discussion of the village taking over Corrales Road. I think maybe time to get that started sometime soon. And also, we had talked at the end of the year about the possibility of discussing not where the money came from, but how we may use any surplus funds we may have that were discovered last year.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. All right. I think at this point, we are at this point, the meeting of the governing body intends to go into closed session pursuant to NMSA 1978, section 1015(1), specifically section H7, pertaining to threatened or pending litigation in which the public body is or may become a participant. The closure requires the majority vote of a quorum of the governing body. Do I have a motion to close the meeting?
Motion to close the meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, Councilor Burkett,
Yep. Aye.
Councilor Knight,
Aye.
Councilor Waldman,
Aye.
Councilor Lucero,
Aye.
Councilor Murray.
Aye.
Thank you. The meeting is now closed. And what is going to happen now is, and I'm sorry you can't come into our closed meeting tonight, Mr. Parker. But we will be going into closed meeting, and that means that the public at this point is not going to be able to be with us. I think we're going to try a breakout room. Is that correct, Aaron?
Yes, that's correct. So please be patient with me. The way it'll work is I'm going to open the rooms. I've already assigned everyone to where they should be. When we are done with closed session, there'll be about a 15-second countdown until we get returned to the normal public, everyone in the same meeting. So just bear with me. It's a little bit of growing pains, but we're going to try it right now. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Boy, it feels so different.
This is cool. All right, everybody. And I figure
And really quick, I'm going to be trying to share my screen, and actually okay, we're back and ready to go.
all right. I don't know. Do we have any members of the public who've hung out with us? Because we need to wait for them to come back in.
No, so Tanya and Vic were the only ones that hung around. So just those two.
All right, I'm going to take a roll call vote to reopen the meeting. Counselor Knight?
Aye.
Counselor Waldman?
Aye.
Counselor Burchett?
Aye.
Counselor Murray?
Aye.
Counselor Lucero?
Aye.
Counselor, let's see, I think that's it, correct? I think we are. All right, the meeting is now reopened. The matters discussed in the closed meeting were limited only to those matters specified in the motion for closure. And this statement that I'm making now will be approved as part of the minutes under section 10:15(1)(g). I think do we have anything else we need to say? Because we didn't take any action.
No, and just to clarify, and no action was taken, and we complied with all requirements of the Open Meetings Act.
Right. We did not take any action, and we did comply with all of the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. And I think at this point, I would take a motion to adjourn.
So
moved.
Oh, there's a lot of agreement with that one. Thank you. Lengthy meeting. We covered a lot of ground. Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Thank you, Randy.